All right, let's dive into one of the most baffling conditions in all of psychiatry. We're going to a place where the mind and body just disconnect, leading to a conclusion that is almost impossible to imagine. We're talking about Cotard Syndrome. Just let that sink in for a moment. Imagine hearing those words from someone who is clearly alive, someone who is breathing and talking right in front of you. For a person with this syndrome, this isn't a metaphor. It's their absolute reality. So that's the big question, right? How is this even possible? What is happening inside the human brain to create a delusion this fundamental? Well, to figure that out, we're going to take a trip through history, psychology, and even into the brain itself. Okay, so first up, let's talk about the name you've probably heard thrown around, maybe in a TV show or a movie, the walking corpse syndrome. It's definitely dramatic, but honestly, it nails the core belief at the heart of this condition. So what is it really? The official term is a nihilistic delusion. And that word, nihilism, the idea that nothing has meaning, nothing exists, that's the key. Patients genuinely believe that parts of them or even their entire being are just gone. Some even have olfactory hallucinations where they can actually smell their own body decay. But here's the thing. That modern idea of a zombie syndrome is a bit of a simplification. To really get it, we need to rewind the clock and go back to the guy who first put a name to this. And that guy is Jules Cotard. See, back in 1880, he wasn't just looking at one bizarre belief. No, he saw this whole collection of symptoms that painted a much, much richer and, frankly, more terrifying picture of what his patients were going through. This is so important. Cotard saw that the I am dead belief didn't happen in a vacuum. It was tangled up with severe depression, intense anxiety, and these overwhelming feelings of guilt and being damned. And here's the real paradox. Some patients also had delusions of immortality. Think about that for a second. Believing you're dead, but also that you're cursed to exist in this dead state forever. So, let's fast forward to today. Modern research has taken everything Cotard observed and used some pretty cool statistical analysis to map out the different ways this syndrome can actually show up. And what they found is that Cotard's isn't just one thing. Not everyone experiences it the same way. When you look at dozens of cases, the symptoms start to clump together into three pretty distinct patterns. So here's how it breaks down. You've got factor one, which they call psychotic depression. This one is all about severe mood problems, like guilt and delusions about your body. Then there's factor two, which is more about a distorted reality. Think delusions of immortality and hallucinations. And finally, factor three is a kind of mixed bag, blending anxiety with this deep conceptual nihilism. It really shows us that Cotard's is more of a spectrum than a single point. And to really get that last slide, you have to understand this core idea of the nihilistic delusion. It's not just one belief. It can be denying your very existence, I don't exist. It can be denying your physical body, my organs are gone. Or it can be something even more profound, denying that concepts themselves are real, a belief that absolutely nothing is real. Okay, so we've talked about the what, but what about the how? What in the world could be going on inside the brain to create a reality so completely separate from our own? Now, this is one of the leading theories, and it is fascinating. When you or I see someone we know, two things happen. Our brain recognizes their face, and it also triggers an emotional response, right? That feeling of familiarity. Well, the hypothesis for Cotard's is that the recognition part works fine, but the emotional part is just offline. Imagine looking in the mirror, recognizing your own face, but feeling absolutely nothing. That total disconnect could force the brain to a chilling conclusion. That person looks like me, but it can't be me. Therefore, I must not exist. And guess what? There's physical evidence that might back this up. Brain scans, specifically something called SPECT scans that measure blood flow, have found something called hypoperfusion in patients. That's just a fancy way of saying there's way less blood flow and therefore less activity in key parts of the brain. So this suggests there's a real, measurable biological event happening that's driving this profound psychological experience. All right, now for what is, without a doubt, the most important parts. A diagnosis this serious, it can feel like a life sentence. But is there a way back? Is recovery actually possible? Yes, absolutely yes. The path back to reality is actually pretty well defined. It starts with a really careful diagnosis, then a combination of medications like antidepressants and antipsychotics. But for the most severe cases, the single most effective treatment is often electroconvulsive therapy, or ECT. And when I say effective, How effective are we talking? Well, studies show that ECT has a success rate of around 80% for Cotars. Now, I know it has a controversial reputation, but modern ECT is a safe, controlled procedure that can, quite literally, bring someone back to life. So, the big takeaway here, the most important thing to remember, is a message of hope. This terrifying delusion, this experience of being a walking corpse, it's treatable. The brain's connection to itself and to the world can be re-established. And that leaves us with one last really big question to chew on. Cotard Syndrome shows us just how fragile our own sense of self is, that it's not a given, it's something our brain is actively building every second of every day. And if that process can be so completely broken, it really makes you wonder about the reality that each of us is busy constructing for ourselves right now.